Welcome in, welcome back. It is week number 4. Connor, can you believe that? 4 weeks
4 weeks
in, we are
already.
just about halfway point. I call like halfway through next week, halfway, since we have 9 weeks.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
uh halfway for some teams, almost there for some that haven't had a bye yet. Connor, we have a treat because we've got the Yates Cup rematch from last year. And after a couple weeks, it looks like it might be a Yates Cup preview for this
Certainly.
season, perfectly placed in the middle because they can grow from last experience, and whatever happens in this game, they will have time to grow and develop and scheme and add in wrinkles before the next matchup. Western at Laurier. They don't get to go and play each other in Kitchener very often. I'm excited for this one.
I think OUA fans around the province are excited for this one. I certainly am excited for this one. Laurier getting to show off their new turf once again as they host the Western Mustangs. What are some things you're looking forward to in this one, though? Because I have a few that I'm looking forward to. I will get to those, but first, I will just give you the floor here.
Experienced Western DBs matching up against the Laurier receiving core and skill players. I mean, Jackson Finley against Taylor Elgersma is kind of the matchup. I mean, we always talk about quarterback against quarterback. They never play. This is one that these players will actively determine the outcome of this game. Jackson Finley for Western, controlling the defense, getting them situated, and then just being the natural playmaker he is against Taylor Elgersma, reigning OUA MVP. Match made in heaven.
Man, it certainly is one of the matchups that I'm looking forward to in this game. Two very cerebral guys, two guys that know how to manipulate the football field on either end of the ball. One thing I'm really looking forward to, though, is the Laurier defensive front seven, I should say, against this powerhouse of a Western rushing offense, from the offensive line to the flurry of backs in the backfield for Western. What is Laurier's defense going to be able to do to make this rushing game uncomfortable? How are they going to attack? How are they going to be able to penetrate this offensive line? Because yeah, not only do they have to stop the rush, but they also have to get through and make Evan Hillock's day uncomfortable. And that's a tough unit to get through so far in the OUA season.
Can they keep pace with Seth Robertson, Misseri, and Mo Jamal? Is that possible for this Laurier secondary? And it's going to take a really
Yeah.
talented group to do so, which they certainly are. But as Carlton found out last week, you have to play a perfect football game. As we kind of look into this one a bit more here, Connor, uh, Laurier run game against the Western front seven. I mean, that's kind of the one aspect we haven't talked about. Will Coach Faulds die trying to establish this run game with an experienced O line? Or do you think he will kind of say, you know what? It's not running early. We got to keep pace with this offense. Let's start airing it out and kind of see what, I mean, good analogy because they are winning lots, but the Chiefs against the Ravens. The Ravens don't have early success in the run game. They say, let's panic and try to keep up with Patrick Mahomes. Not saying they are equal players or styles or they're completely different, but this Western team functions and intimidates teams that same way. Does Laurier kind of go into their shell and say, let's start airing it out and make it a really long day for our defense?
It's a good question, but I'm going to go back to last week because I don't think that they will. When we look at what they did against Guelph, they stayed true to who they were. And Guelph was nipping at their heels all game long. We saw it come down to the third quarter, and we talked about this on the recap, but they stuck to Tanner Nelms. They stuck to El Gersma on the ground. They stuck to, taking their shots when they were available, and it turned out for a win with them. Now, that was with a lead. I'm interested to see what this is going to look like if they might not have a lead, if they're down 7, if they're down 10, if they're down 3 in these sort of comeback situations. Because thus far, Laurier has been dominant in most of these football games, or at least they've been in the driver's seat of most of these football games. And they're going up against a good Western team where they very well might be down a score or a score and a field goal or a field goal in this game. So I'm curious to see how their identity looks and what they stay true to in a scenario where they might be down.
Yeah, true to yourself, true to your assignment, true to the trust that you've built through training camp and over these last couple of years, uh, I think remaining core or set in your core foundational pieces is what's going to give Laurier a shot to win. And for Western, do what you do. Don't let teams dictate. They never do, but don't let a team dictate how you're gonna operate offensively. Let Hillock be the guy that gets the ball to his hands quick or using long play action and get your running backs going. Get them both over the century mark. Expect them to be well over a dozen touches each.
We will now kick it over to an interview. We had Taylor L. Gersma of the Golden Hawks help us queue it up last week. We're going to go to the other side. We're going to go to the other sideline for this week. Joins us now to help tee up the Western Mustangs as they take on the Laurier Golden Hawks. All right, joining me now on the OUA show to tee up this Western Laurier football game is Braden Misseri from the Western Mustangs. Braden, thank you so much for joining me. I joked a little bit off air. It's kind of a bit of a ball game. People don't know this one's coming up. It might be a little bit of an exciting football game for you guys.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know what says it about this being a big game, but I feel like Laurier Western, something about that just really hits home.
Couple lossless teams here going at it head to head. Yourselves absolutely rolling. But I do want to start this off talking about Laurier a little bit because this is the opponent that you're going to play. So good football team in their own right. Haven't lost a game yet. I know they're coming off a win against Guelph and a bye, so looking pretty strong heading into the fourth week of OUA action. But so are the Western Mustangs. So what can we expect coming into this game as your Mustangs take on the Golden Hawks here?
I think we're just excited, man. It's going to be a good game. It's going to be a big game. We know what Laurier is going to do. We've seen them time and time again. At the end of the day, though, I think we're just going to come out. We're going to play our brand of football and do what we need to do. Our coaches always emphasize, whatever I got to do to make this play as best as it possibly can be. I think we all take that each play and every step of the way, to be honest.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but we're talking about identities. We're talking about the way that Western plays football. And to me, to the OUA fans so far, it has been a whole lot of the run game from the Western Mustangs. Going into this game, I expect what we can expect as OUA fans, much of the same. Keon and the gang absolutely dominating on the ground game through the first couple weeks of the OUA season, and your offensive line playing very, very well to boot.
Yeah, no, 100%. We love the guys up front, and Keon and Keanu in the backfield. Those guys are always ready to go at any given day. We got to give a shout out to the guys up front, though. Without them, setting that base and getting the play going in the first place, we wouldn't be able to have the success we've had. And again, those guys are ready to go. They watch a lot of film. They know what Laurier is about. Again, it's going to be a big game for them, and I'm very excited to see what they're going to be able to do this week.
And I know you're a pass catcher yourself. We're going to get there. I promise. We're going to talk about you guys that get to handle the rock through the air, but you do have some talented ball carriers in your backfield in Keon Edwards, Keanu Yazbek, Ethan Dolby himself can tote the rock as well. Your quarterbacks can run the ball too. So just talk about, the guys that carry the ball back there. And we touched on the offensive line briefly, but I do think that is such a big part of Western football this year. So if you can talk about, the running backs a little bit and then the offensive line up front, because I think they are so impressive through the first 4 weeks.
Well, man, I don't even know where to start, to be honest with those guys. I think they all have their own specific skill set, and the way that they approach the game is so different than a lot of different guys. Keon and Keanu, they're so technical and so hard hitting of the holes that the O line presents. And even with Dolby, he's getting his mix into the game, and when he finds his rhythm, man, he's reading it out. He's hitting holes hard and effectively. I mean, there's nothing more you want to ask in your backs than to put the ball in your hand and go full tilt through the hole and hit it as hard as fast as possible. And again, that just goes back to also the O line. They're getting off the ball hard. They're making the plays they need to make, getting up to the guys they have to get on. And the running backs are taking that and they're running with it. We've seen it and for example, last game, Keon had 3 touchdowns. Keanu had a touchdown. I mean, what more do you want from those guys by doing that every day, right?
Three from Keon, and the rest of the crew there last game, 6 total from your backfield a week before. Suffice to say that Western is going to run the ball, but you yourself, as I said before, are part of a very damn good receiving core. And, a lot of times we associate the offensive line with the ability to run the ball. But, when you have an offensive line as good as you guys do at Western, that really affords you guys opportunities in the passing attack as well. Because if a guy like Evan Hillock is protected, he's able to get you guys the ball downfield, and you just happen to be a part of a great group of guys. It's yourself, it's guys like Mo Jamal, it's guys like Seth Robertson. So talk about, being a part of a group like that and your ability to move the ball downfield through the air.
I mean, in long story short, I think it's just a lot of trust, man. We have a lot of trust in one another and, all of our capabilities together. We know Evan's going to put the ball where it needs to be when it needs to be there. Evan trusts us to be in the right spot and to run our routes effectively. And again, I'm going to bring it back to the O-line once again. Those guys are up there blocking as long as they need to. However long Evan needs back there is what they're going to do to give him that time. And when I see that ball come out of Evan's hand, I know there's a lot of good things that are going to happen, whether it be myself catching it, Seth catching a post in the end zone, or Lawson taking a short route and breaking it upfield. Those guys, when they get the ball in their hand, they're dangerous. And we trust each other. We trust that Evan's going to do what he has to do, and he trusts that we're going to do what we got to.
One of the themes that we've kind of noticed here and latched onto at CFP is the veteranship across the OUA this year. You're part of a veteran group over there with the Western Mustangs, but Laurier, your opponent coming up this week, they've returned a lot of guys as well. So as you're getting ready to go against a veteran defensive group like the Laurier Golden Hawks, specifically from the offensive end for you guys, what does that look like going into week 4?
Going at it now as long as we've had, and we see those guys that we've continued to go against year after year. I think it comes down to finding the tendencies of the team we're playing, and you got to watch a little bit more film. You got to be a little bit more dialed on certain things, and specifically the down and distance. And you got to find the tendencies of the defense, and especially the players, right? Coaches are going to do what they can, and they're going to install the game plan and get us ready. But at the end of the day, it falls onto you to watch, film on your own time and watching the guy you're going to be going against day in and day out. So just, being on top of your film and really understanding the tendencies of the defense and the guy you're going against is definitely a big part of it.
And this Laurier group has a lot of very good defenders on the back end of their defense. The secondary is a really, really strong point of this defensive group. And I know it's not a unit that you necessarily go against every day in practice, but throughout camp and things like that, getting to go against guys like Jackson Finley and the rest of your ones group at Western, how does that help you prepare as you head into this Laurier game?
I think it honestly helps us prepare immensely. I mean, you guys got like Jackson Finley, Kojo Doom, Richard Adubu for recovering you during camp, man. That just sharpens your skills as a receiver. Those guys giving their 100% effort, and obviously myself giving 100% effort. We're gonna iron sharpens iron, and we love going against each other. It's a good competition. Friendly. It can get a little chippy at times during camp, but at the end of the day, we're there for each other. We're gonna make each other get better. We're gonna push each other to the full extent to where we want to get to with this thing.
And I know it's not necessarily your side of the ball, but I want to ask because I think, he's one of my, certainly being a defensive guy myself, he's one of my favorite players to talk about in the OUA. That is Jackson Finley. You are preparing to go against Taylor Elgersma in a very damn good Laurier Golden Hawks offense. Guy like Jackson Finley leading your defense, getting ready to go against this Golden Hawks offense. What has that been looking like in practice for you guys?
From what I've been seeing Jackson making the right calls and putting the defense in the best shape for whatever the offense may put out. That guy's a leader on that defense, and you also got Riley McLeod at the Mac backer. He's doing his thing as well. A tandem of those two. They're making sure their guys are in the right places. They're holding each other accountable, making sure everybody's executing on what has to be done. Laurier's a good offense. We know they're a very good offense, and they got some playmakers on that side. We also have some playmakers on defense. It's going to be a great game. Going to be a good battle to see those guys go at it. I'm excited for what our defense is going to bring this weekend.
How much, whether you guys get the ball to start the game or not, how much do you look to your defense to set the tone? Because I know it wasn't necessarily the earliest play in the game, but I look back to the start of the season, and this kind of sets the tone for the start of your defensive season. Special teams play from Jackson Finley absolutely blows up Ferdinand in that Ottawa game. What does a play like that do for, and again, I know this is an early play in the season, but what does that do to kind of set the tone, not just in that game, but for the season for your defense? Because you see a guy make a hit like that. I mean, offense, defense, whatever you play, that's got to get you jacked up.
Oh, I mean, 100%. When I seen that play, that was a good thing to watch in film the next day. I can definitely say. But when you have guys making plays like that, I think everybody just feeds off the energy. We know Jackson's going to go 150% whenever he's on the field, whether he be playing defense or special teams. And heck, maybe even if we ever brought him on offense, I know he'd be giving us 100% effort on that. But you see a guy make a play like that, everybody's feeding off that energy, and it's vice versa. If we get the ball first or defense is on first, we know those guys are going to make plays, and they know that we're going to make plays on our own. We just feed off each other. We get each other amped up, supportive of one another. And again, just seeing those big plays be made, just I think gets anybody fired up, regardless if you're at home watching the game or if you're right there on the side.
All right, last one before I let you go because it is late and I've taken up enough of your time here on a Thursday night going into a game weekend for you. But you are traveling to the Kitchener-Waterloo region to take on these Laurier Golden Hawks. How's that travel going to affect you, and what can Western fans expect from a road game from the purple and silver here?
Man, road game. Generally, personally, I'm not a big fan of any bus rides, but we're leaving early. We're getting us enough time to stretch and roll out and get prepared. But honestly, for the Western fans, they're gonna expect a good game. It's gonna be beautiful weather on Saturday. We always like having good weather. It means we can throw it just like I like catching the ball. But honestly, I think it's just gonna be a good game. Everybody's gonna be jacked up. Everybody's gonna be fired up. It's Western versus Laurier. I don't think there's much that needs to be said about the rivalry of this game. Everybody's hyped up. We've all circled the dates on our calendar for this day. So I think the fans just need to expect a good game, expect some words being exchanged on the field, and it's just going to be a good one.
Yeah, like we said off the top, not a whole lot to get excited about for this game, right? I mean, it's not like it's the marquee matchup or anything like that. Not like it's the game we're highlighting on the calendars for week 4.
Yeah,
But
Yates Cup rematch. Man, I don't know what
no,
about this is saying it's a big game.
nothing, absolutely nothing. But Braden, thank you so much for joining myself here on a Thursday night to get fans excited for this game. Really appreciate your time, and best of luck this weekend going into this game against the Laurier Golden Hawks.
Thank you very much for having me. And of course, whenever you need to speak, I'm always available.
Big thanks to both you for doing that one. If you guys get a chance, all of these games this week are going to be on OUA.tv. We're going to talk about a few more here, but Connor, OUA.tv to catch all of these games, including this Yates Cup rematch from last fall. All right, Connor, enough about these damn running backs. We got games with 3 quarterbacks because Guelph is still insistent on running this 2 QB system, and it is working. Guelph. Mac obviously getting their first win of the year. They've played a really tough schedule so far this year. And Guelph, who has kind of been the belle of the ball, but their first taste of defeat last week at the hands of the Laurier Golden Hawks. How does this group rebound?
Yeah, I'm excited for this football game. I think this is going to be a fun one in Guelph. Despite the win-loss column for these teams, I know Mac's coming in 1-2, Guelph's coming in 2-1. Guelph coming off 2 really good wins, but Mac has looked good in their wins, in their losses. Their identity this season has been throwing the football. Guelph, obviously, their identity has been this dynamic Tristan Aboud, Marshall McCray dynamic in the backfield with the quarterbacks. But I really do think, and we talked about this, Aboud is their guy. They are sticking to him. They stuck to him in this Laurier game. And I think this is going to be a really fun one to see if Mac can pace with Guelph. We know Guelph is going to march the field. We know they're going to find creative ways to score. So is Mac going to be able to keep up? We know they're going to come out slinging the rock, but they do have a good backfield in Braden Kelly. If this goes to a shootout, I think this is going to be a fun one to watch as Keegan Hall and Tristan Aboud come down to the wire. But I think this is all about finding ways for Mac to stop what has been an electric Guelph offense.
All right, moving over to a team that has struggled offensively since week 1, but another that I think is really finding their rhythm, and that's the Carleton Ravens traveling to the Toronto Varsity Blues. Connor, quick note on this one, Elijah Barnes' 3rd start. It looks like he's going to be in for this one as well. He played fantastic, I thought, against Western for a first year starter, really playing against the Western Mustangs. They run the ball well. He's a great distributor to all their playmakers, and their defense has been stout against the run. As for the Varsity Blues, since week 1, they haven't really had success running the football, and it has showed in their record. Expect for Toronto to try and be hell-bent on running it, but Carleton's defense has had 2 outstanding weeks against the ground.
Yeah, they certainly have. And, speaking of ground games, that seems to be kind of a theme here this week. But we're going to move on to 2 teams with 2 very good ground games. The Queens Gales heading to the nation's capital to take on the Ottawa GGs. Jared Chisari, Charles Asselin. Need I say more in this one?
Yeah.
That's what you're
No.
gonna get. That is what you're gonna see in this game. I know Alex Vreekin had a really nice day throwing the ball against York just a week ago. Was up over 300 yards. I think for Queens, really just lean on Jared Chisari, and then with Alex Vreekin find ways to get the ball downfield. That was kind of the formula last week against York. I expect much of the same this week against Ottawa. And for Ottawa, again, I really do think these teams are similar in terms of offensive styles of play. Ottawa's going to have to lean on Charles Asselin to move the ball a little bit here. They're going to have to find ways to get him involved. They did that last week. He was up over 70 receiving and well over 100 on the ground. But I think for Ottawa now, the next step for me, find more outlets, because once you shut down the machine that is Charles Asselin, what is this Ottawa offense going to look like? That is the question we are all waiting to see. Might get the answers to this weekend if Queens' defense can figure out what to do with Charles Asselin.
And, they've got 200-yard rushes last week from Waterloo that won against this Ottawa team. So I think it is a Jared Chisari week inbounds. But be wary of that Ottawa secondary. Final game of the week here in the
special
OUA.
teams too. Goodness.
Ian St. Arnaud, of course, he's talking about you. Windsor at York for the final game of the week. Connor, Windsor coming off of that week bye, they get a little bit of rest, but they're going to be pushing now because this is their home stretch. They need to start creating some separation between them and everyone else that's chasing this far into the season. As Windsor played their last game against Carleton, it was a walk-off win that they got dominated in for the majority of the game. I'm sure that Coach JP has lit the fire for the last 2 weeks. As for York, offense moved the ball. Matt Lynn's arm not quite there, but Alfred Olay just makes so many plays that it's tough to stop for a full 4 quarters. If a team can do it, Windsor's athletic DBs might be able to run with them. I think Windsor's just going to out-physical this York Lions team, though, this week.
Maybe a little Detroit Lions football in the water over there in Windsor. We saw the Lions power the football. That certainly seems to be what Windsor is planning to do. But let's close this one out. Homer says, hey, no, it's a proximity thing here, geographical proximity here for the Windsor Lancers. Let's close it out though. That does it for the OUA games this week. A lot of fun ones coming up. You can check those all out at OUA.tv, as Wade did mention. That wraps it up. We're gonna go watch these games. We advise you all to do the same. We will catch you next week early with that preview.